Joe Biden took confidential documents. And we know that anytime that happens in America, the country is probably going to be doomed unless there are swift repercussions, unless the entire Justice Department reorients itself to quash this catastrophe. That's what happened when Donald Trump allegedly took these documents and the FBI raided his home in Mar-a-Lago. But now it turns out Joe Biden had something very similar going on in a closet in one of his charitable so-called organizations. We have an exclusive here from CBS, which we will get to, but there's a lot more to unpack because we're going to learn about the Biden Center, the Penn Biden Center for so-called diplomacy and global engagement, and learn what that entire organization is about, including looking inside of it, right? Walking around inside. Somebody went outside and filmed it. We know more about what they're purportedly doing. And then we're going to learn about this individual who is appointed to sort of investigate this document situation. The guy's name is John Lausch. And so we'll hear from him in a minute. But then we'll go over to CNN and we'll sort of compare and contrast Joe Biden's statements on this, because Joe said that when Trump had these confidential documents, it was the end of the world. We're going to see how CNN is dealing with this now that they know that Joe Biden did pretty much the same thing. So let's start off with some background over from CBS, because they are the ones that sort of broke this story, at least as far as I know. There's a lot of people reporting on it. But CBS News reports as follows. They tell us a U.S. attorney is reviewing documents marked classified from Joe Biden's vice presidency found at Biden's think tank, which if this was Trump, right, that headline would be a lot different. Probably wouldn't be like found at, like passive language, like they just found them. Oh, with Trump, it was like Trump stole them. Trump took them. Trump ripped them out of the White House, put them on moving boxes so haphazardly, and wheeled them into the front of Mar-a-Lago, where there were a bunch of tourists over there. But here, right, they just found them, at Biden's think tank. All right. And the first, little bit here, we're going to see how they justify this. So as we go throughout the show today, the theme that we'll see is this attempt to sort of win both sides of the argument. Win by saying Donald Trump, what he did was egregious and criminal and deserves prosecution, versus what Joe Biden did is innocent and he's a good person and he should be given the benefit of the doubt. So we're going to see them trying to split this, both ways. And we'll just follow that pattern along through basically the entire day. Attorney General Merrick Garland, it's reported, has assigned the U.S. attorney in Chicago to review documents. We're going to learn more about him. His name is John Lausch, that were marked classified, that were found at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement in Washington. Two sources with knowledge told CBS News. The roughly 10 documents or so are from Biden's vice presidential office at the center, the sources said. CBS News learned about this, that the FBI is also involved in the inquiry. My goodness, wow. Now, the material was identified by personal attorneys for Joe Biden. That took place on November 2nd. Curious, was there something else going on early November that was very important, that maybe if this had been disclosed to America may have been impactful in certain things throughout the world? Yeah, the midterm elections. They knew about it on November 2nd. We're just learning out about it now. Convenient. Just before the midterms, Richard Sauber, special counsel to Joe, confirmed all of this. The documents were discovered when Biden's personal attorneys were, quote, packing files housed in a locked closet to prepare to vacate the office space at the Penn Biden Center in D.C. Well, I remember when Trump said that there was a locked closet, that wasn't good enough. And that was totally inappropriate for nuclear secrets and things, right? Sauber said in a statement when he provided that to CBS, the documents were contained in a folder that was in a box with other unclassified papers, which is what we were told terrorists do, who are going to be selling classified materials to the Saudis, the Chinese, and so on, probably to the Russians. The sources revealed neither what the documents contained nor their level of classification. A source familiar with the matter told them they did not contain nuclear secrets. Whew, well, that's good. So Sauber also said that on the same day the material was discovered, November 2nd, the White House counsel's office notified the National Archives, which took possession of the materials the following morning, right? And this is going to be another theme. The distinguishing feature here between what Trump did and what Biden did, they're going to say, is obstruction, right? So as we go through this, remember, we spent a ton of time on this when Trump had his residence raided, but there were several different sort of potential avenues of prosecution. One of them was just being in possession of the documents alone was problematic. Just the mere fact that you have national defense information in your physical possession, even Bill Barr and many others said that was sufficient to lead to prosecution, to criminal prosecution. But there was another element of this that involved obstruction. Remember, there's a whole additional purview. One of the charges was about obstruction. And they were saying that Trump's lawyers, Trump's team, people were confirming in writing that the chain of custody had been completed, and they avowed that, no, we don't actually have any additional documents. We've turned everything over. And they're saying, oh, but you didn't. So you lied. Therefore, you obstructed. Right. So that is a pretty, I think, interesting distinguishing factor here. Biden's people and the media and everybody's going to say, no. Trump should still be prosecuted for obstruction, but everything else, maybe not. Okay, so like if you see the DOJ, my prediction, if you see the DOJ come out and indict Trump, but not indict Biden, it's going to be on this issue. They'll indict Trump on obstruction, but not the possession charges, and they'll dismiss anything against Biden on the basis that he was cooperative. And they're trying to lay that foundation here right now. Immediately, they took possession of the materials the following morning. Lawyers rummaging through some files. He says, oh, crap, this is Hunter Biden's Ukraine invoice. Okay. Got to tell the National Archives. Calls the National Archives right away and transfers all the documents back in. He's like, we better cover this thing up. Don't let this spiral out of control. And that's cooperation. Therefore, they say Biden should get the benefit of the doubt. As the lawyers rummaging through these documents, the discovery of these documents was made by Biden's attorneys. The documents were not the subject of any other previous request or inquiry by the archives, which is interesting. Why were they so up in Trump's rear end, but they're not so concerned about, I guess, just, confidential top secret national documents just floating around the universe, wherever they may happen to be. They really need Trump's library's books back, right? Trump had those documents. They better get those back or else. But Biden, vice president, is just like, how did he get those documents? How did they end up there? Did he check the library book out? Did the National Archives even know about this, that they were out? Like, okay, it's nice that the documents were not the subject of any previous request. You see how convenient that is? Well, they asked Trump for his documents over and over, right? They repeatedly demanded it. Okay, but did they even know that Joe Biden took these classified documents? Maybe that's why there weren't any requests there, because they didn't even know they were gone. Did he steal them? Since that discovery, the president's personal attorneys have cooperated with the archives and the DOJ in the process, right? That distinguishes it from Trump. Trump was obstructing. Joe Biden wasn't. And Trump was denying requests, and the National Archives never even asked for Joe's. Maybe because they didn't know they existed. A source familiar with the matter said that representatives from the National Archives then notified the DOJ. So Attorney General Garland then assigned U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois, John Lausch, who we're going to learn a lot more about in a minute, to find out how the material marked classified ended up at the center. We're going to learn. What was the chain of custody? Did Joe Biden shove them in his pants as he was exiting the White House? The review is considered a preliminary step, and the Attorney General will then determine whether further investigation is necessary, including appointing a special counsel. Lausch was nominated to be U.S. Attorney by former President Trump. He's only one of the two current Trump-era attorneys still serving. Other is David Weiss, who's leading an investigation into the president's son, Hunter. Right? And so they're constantly saying, well, these are Trump people. These are Trump people. So they're not conflicted. Even though many so-called Trump appointees, in my humble opinion, have been extremely conflicted. That's never stopped them before. It says Lausch recently briefed the Attorney General, will eventually submit a final report. The review is expected to conclude soon. The Penn Biden Center is a think tank about a mile away from the White House. It's affiliated with the University of Pennsylvania. And of course, we know all about the Presidential Records Act, and we've talked about Trump's excuses as well. Biden learned about the presence of the documents when his lawyer reported them to the White House. Lausch's review will examine how the documents got there. Pennsylvania did not respond to a comment. National Archives also did not respond. Attorneys assigned to oversee Biden's vice presidential records, named Robert Lenhard, James Garland, and Dana Remus, also did not reply. Justice Department, FBI also did not reply. ODNI did not reply. Former President Trump replied, we'll get there. And Kevin McCarthy called recovery of the documents with classified markings very concerning, says Kevin McCarthy. Absolutely it is. I'm shocked and appalled. I think this is a catastrophe on it must be addressed. So he's added that he's had these classified documents. And what has he said about other presidents with classified documents? Great question there, Kev. We've got clips from James Comer and others. Slippery Jamie Raskin said that what they have done, unlike Trump, is appear to have taken immediate and proper action, which is to notify the National Archives. All of this after the FBI literally raided Trump's residence. Now, a lot of money went over here. Biden got paid almost $1 million for speeches at this center because these are basically just gigantic money laundering operations where, they're out there working for global diplomacy for big, big money. Okay, so that is the story over from CBS. Now, CBS gave us a little bit of a preview of the Penn Biden Center. Here's what it looks like from the outside. For those of you who are not familiar with this location, the Penn Biden Center.
3 sources tell CBS News the classified documents were discovered in this building about a mile from the White House at the offices of the Penn Biden Center, a foreign policy research institute set up after President Biden left the vice presidency. According to a source familiar with the matter, the classified documents are small in number.
Small in number? Relative to what? Relative to who? Oh, yeah, Trump, the one that's really the real criminal.
And were found in November in a box among unclassified material. Sources would not characterize how sensitive the documents are.
Wow.
Responding to requests from CBS News, the White House counsel said that on November 2nd of last year, before the midterm elections, lawyers for President Biden were cleaning out office space at the center. When they discovered the documents marked classified in a locked closet, they stopped the work and contacted the White House. White House lawyers then reached out to the National Archives, which is...
Got it. We've got all of that in the article, and you can see a little bit of the photography outside of the Penn Biden Center. This is what it looks inside. So if you were to go over there and sort of visit it around, this actually came over from this fella. His name is Scott Thuman. Scott Thuman said, no, this is where President Biden's team found potentially classified documents in private possession. Says the GOP is now demanding an investigation, right? Because if Trump's going to get investigated, why would they not also investigate Biden for the same thing? This is inside at Scott Thuman on Twitter. He's walking us through the Penn Biden Center. You can see the nice sign on the wall. It looks like a big, giant office space. Looks like beautiful offices, really. Huge entrance, massive conference room. Nobody's inside. Nobody's working. It's just a big, empty building because all that you really need the building for is the address so that you can just wire the funds coming from the Chinese bank accounts into Hunter's laptop. So all of that continues, and you can see what it looks like. Now, what does this thing actually do, right? Anytime you see something like this, the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. Does anybody know what that means? Let's see if we can find out because I had no idea. All right, here's what they say over on their website. It says they're strengthening American global leadership for the future. All right, let's figure out how they're going to do that. Learn more. Perfect. All right, our mission statement says, the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy is founded on the principle that a democratic, open, secure, and tolerant and interconnected world benefits all Americans. All right. Based on our nation's capital, the Penn Biden Center engages, okay, we're going to get to what they do here, more of our fellow citizens in shaping this world while ensuring global engagement and the gains of global engagement are widely shared. Okay, I still don't know exactly what they do. It says the U.S. leadership has sustained an open world. All right, so that's about U.S. leadership. All right, the Penn Biden engages Penn students and partners with its faculty and global centers to convene world leaders, develop and advance smart policy, and strengthen the national debate. All right, no, there you go. I really have no idea what they do still. Here's what they say on YouTube.
The reason why we've been able to lead the world for the foreign policy.
Oh, yeah. So where other leaders of the world can come into the United States and engage with Joe Biden, essentially. Okay. So you can see that's what they do. No idea what they actually do. I don't even think that they know what they actually do, but I'm sure they make a ton of money, and I'm sure that all goes to very good purposes. All right. And so now we're going to see who is actually in charge of this investigation, the person who's going to be watching what those confidential records looked like. Let's learn more about the man himself. John Lausch. He was born 1970. An American attorney, currently serving as the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. Previously served as the Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Northern District of Illinois, 1999 to 2010. He served as the Deputy Chief of Narcotics and Gangs, helped lead the district's anti-gang neighborhoods. He went to Northwestern, and he went to Harvard. Oh, great. Great. Oh, great. Here we go again. All right. He says he's also clerked for the 7th Circuit. Perfect. All right. So he was nominated back in 2017. He was sworn in 2017. Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, who I think are both Democrats, released a joint statement that Lausch should remain in office in the new administration to complete sensitive investigations. That's interesting. So we've got, unlike 55 other Trump-era attorneys, he was not asked to resign. Why? I wonder why. So when Biden comes in, he says, "You're all fired. Get out of here." Not this guy. They like this guy. All right. So I don't know why exactly, but he's not, he's not been asked to leave. And so we're going to take a quick listen to what he had to say, because somebody found a clip of him when he was speaking. This is Mr. Lausch, the new assigned attorney investigating Joe Biden's classified documents.
We're here today to discuss a critically important topic: violent crime in Chicago. As Attorney General Barr has made clear, the most basic responsibility of government is to protect the safety of our citizens. For those of us in law enforcement, our top priority is to keep people safe. For much of this year, Chicago and many other cities have experienced significant, unacceptable, and in many instances staggering spikes in homicides, shootings, and other violent crime. In response, the Attorney General launched Operation Legend, a systematic and coordinated law enforcement initiative in which federal law enforcement agencies work with state and local law enforcement departments to fight these crimes. In Chicago, we are fortunate to have one of the finest police departments in the country, the Chicago Police Department. The brave men and women in uniform have worked tirelessly to protect the citizens of Chicago. The goal of Operation Legend is to reinforce and to accelerate their efforts to reduce violent crime. The Attorney General has endeavored to do so by sending additional federal resources to Chicago, including a substantial number of agents from the ATF, FBI, DEA, and the United States Marshal Service. The Department of Homeland Security Investigation also committed additional agents. Since that time, about 7 weeks ago, when Operation Legend began in Chicago on July 22nd, my office and our federal and local partners have worked together to investigate and to prosecute the individuals who are driving the violence in Chicago.
All right, so maybe those are some of the investigations that they wanted him to sort of stick around and see. Of course, we will see what he finds for us. They've told us that the investigation is going to be wrapping up here soon. And so we'll keep going. We've got CNN now, which is going to break down the compare and the contrast between Joe Biden, what he said when he was on 60 Minutes some time ago, and how this comports with these new possible charges, with this new evidence that Joe Biden apparently had classified documents. But first, my friends, let's talk about our friends over at 4patriots.com, because they are amazing sponsors of this program. And of course, as you know, sometimes power goes out. A tree branch one time hit a power line back in Ohio, 2003. It shut down the power for around 100 people. 21 power plants and 100 people died is actually what happened. Now, we have a power grid that was designed back in the 1800s. Even the White House sees it. They're saying that the 2/3 of the grid are at least 25 years old. So they recently announced billions of dollars to update it. You heard about all these packages. And how long is that going to take to fix our power grid? That's why having power is now more important than ever. And you can go to 4patriots.com, grab yourself a Patriot Power generator, the 1800. This is something so amazing. You don't even need to install this in your house. It's portable. You can take it with you. Powerful enough to power your devices, your medical devices, even your fridge if you need it. And you can go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this beautiful Patriots Power generator. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on anything $97 or above. A portion of every sale goes to charities who support our veterans and their families. And so you can go to 4patriots.com, take a look at this Patriot Power generator. Use code Robert and get yours today. All right, my friends. And so let's carry on. Now, Joe Biden has to reconcile his two statements. CNN got the clip. Some time ago, Joe Biden said that Trump's possession of these classified documents were so irresponsible that he couldn't even believe it. What does Joe Biden say now?
We have this.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
Tell us, Joe.
How that could possibly happen.
I know.
How anyone could be that irresponsible.
Oh, gross.
And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods?
Good
By
question.
that, I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And it's just totally irresponsible.
Totally irresponsible. Unbelievable that somebody could do something like that. And in those documents, who knows what's in them? I mean, there really could be anything in there. Top secret nuclear codes, information being stolen and sent over to the Russians, or it could be materials related to Ukraine, Iran, and other countries. CNN reported this Tuesday, January 10th. They say that the U.S. materials, the intelligence documents that were found in Biden's private office, were related to, of course, Ukraine. And who spent a lot of time over there, engaged in a lot of issues internationally? Hunter Biden. Very convenient. Now, here we can see more, but CNN reports, very conveniently, that among the items from Joe Biden's time as vice president discovered in a private office last fall, right before the midterms, are 10 classified documents, including U.S. intelligence memos, the same kind that Joe Biden just said he was ultra concerned about, and briefing materials that covered topics including Ukraine and Iran, along with the UK. Now, Attorney General Merrick Garland received a preliminary report on this document. Law enforcement's going to decide how to proceed. We already talked about John Lausch. But the classified documents that we see, they were dated between 2013 and 2016, according to the source. They were found in 3 or 4 boxes, also containing unclassified papers that fall under the Presidential Records Act. And they were not as nice to Trump about this, right? They were saying that, in fact, they didn't say hardly any of this type of language, that Trump was covered under anything. Every document was illegal. It was actually embarrassing that he mixed classified and unclassified papers, right? This was egregious when Trump did this. The commingling of top secret documents with other magazines and things, unbelievable. The vast majority of the items, they say, excusing this, contains personal Biden family documents, including, get the sympathy card violin out, including materials about Beau Biden's funeral arrangements and condolence letters, man. The source told CNN. It's not clear if the boxes with classified materials contained Hunter Biden's farewell letter. Oh, gosh. You know, it's really, really, you know, and with all due respect to Beau Biden, and rest in peace, right? I understand the pain there. I'm mocking CNN for including this in the article. They didn't play, you know, first of all, you know, it's really a shame that this is even an issue. You know, those documents were Joe Biden's dead son documents. OK, how dare you? It's not clear if the boxes with classified documents contain personal materials. Now, Attorney General Merrick Garland assigned the U.S. Attorney in Chicago to investigate this. We learned about who that was. The documents were discovered 6 days before the midterm elections, but the matter only became public on Monday due to news reports because everybody else was covering it up. Now, CNN is doing this very interesting compare and contrast because they are, unbiased now, and they're working towards creating a more neutral place where they can spread their propaganda. Here, they tell us, the side-by-side, Joe Biden, 10 total documents compared to Trump's at least 325. And they told us historically that doesn't matter. They said that simple possession of one document is enough, right? And that was enough to prosecute. So that doesn't really matter according to their own rules. Some top secret, 60 top secret, again, doesn't matter, inconsequential. The fact you got one, it's prosecutable enough is what their argument was. Now, the difference here, right, is this obstruction. This is where they're going to try to distinguish Trump's case versus Biden's case. He's cooperating. Lawyers found and they alerted the archives, right? They're good little government bureaucrats. They just say, oh, well, gosh, we got to do the right thing. According to them, Trump says, hey, first of all, the reason why I didn't, alert the archives and why we didn't cooperate is because I was the president and you were not. You were the vice president there, Joe. So you didn't have the authority to declassify and do the things that the president has the authority to do. That's why you're cooperating. That's why lawyers found and alerted the archives, because it's a different classification. It's a whole different status. There's different powers. And Trump was asserting his power, which is his right to do in this country. He said, I'm the president. I declassified these things. Those are my documents, not yours. President Bill Clinton used the same excuse to keep his sock drawer clean and not turn those records over to the National Archives. Judicial Watch sued over that. And the D.C. Circuit Court affirmed presidents have ultimate authority in making those distinctions. Because if the president doesn't have those authorities in making those distinctions, who does? Some head librarian at the National Archives? Is that the type of checks and balances that we just talked about in this country, where the National Archives has more declassification authority than the sitting president does? To say, oh, no, sorry, sir, you can't do that. You didn't fill out this form. And I'm not going to allow you to do that. And Trump says, no, we're not doing that stupid game. I'm the president. You're not. They're mine, not yours. FBI said, well, we're going to go raid his house, even though they didn't go raid Hillary Clinton's house when she had classified material on her email server. They didn't even prosecute her. But they did, and they were going headstrong into prosecuting Trump. And they're doing these stupid little compare and contrasts to try to make themselves feel better about this, because many of them were hyperventilating for the last, ever since this happened, about what a catastrophe this was. Remember guys like Andrew Weissman we played on this show day after day, we're just crying day after day about how egregious this was. CNN now has a compare and contrast. Now, the source told CNN that a personal lawyer for Biden was closing out the downtown DC office that Biden used to work out of. The lawyer saw a manila folder that was labeled personal. Opened the envelope and noticed there were classified documents inside. Not personal at all. How'd the documents get in there? And this is very curious. In fact, it sounds like the former vice president was trying to obscure the documents. He was trying to hide them. This is malicious intent. He was trying to insert them in a place nobody would even look and label it personal. Joe Biden's sitting there. He's like, aha, this is how I'll hide Hunter's classified materials. Personal. Nobody will look in there. The lawyer closed the envelope and called NARA. National Archives. After making contact with them, Biden's team turned over several boxes in an abundance of caution. And because they went, holy crap, we had classified documents. Oh, no, we are so screwed. We made this one of our biggest issues for Trump. Crap. Now, to be honest with you, I am honestly surprised that this ever made it out. I can't believe this hasn't been covered up, or that the lawyers just didn't throw those right in the shredder or something. But the lawyers, I can understand not throwing them in the shredder. Everybody else, the fact that CBS got this, the fact that this is even out there, it's like, oh my goodness. How is the first thing that Joe Biden did after they went after Trump's office is to not scrub his records before they, before they go? Wouldn't that be like priority number one? You just make sure that your nose is clean, your side of the street's clean before you start criticizing the other side. But no, they didn't do that. Even though many of the boxes contain personal matters. Now, the U.S. attorney has submitted preliminary findings to Garland, and he must now decide how to proceed. In the Trump matter, Garland has already tapped special counsel Jack Smith, who used to work at the International Criminal Court previously, to investigate Trump. They wanted to prosecute him so stinking bad. The Biden probe is nowhere near that stage. Garland chose to have Lausch conduct an initial review. He's one of two remaining Trump-appointed U.S. attorneys. And to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest, people briefed on the matter said. Lausch is not expected to undertake any additional fact-gathering. We have a clip. In an awkward moment on Monday, Garland was sitting alongside Biden at a diplomatic summit in Mexico. Reporters shouted questions. Biden didn't answer. We'll play that clip later. Now, there are serious political consequences to this entire debacle for the Democrats. They were making this a centerpiece of their entire operation, and now they're having to reconcile what the heck happened. Here is CNN having a discussion and trying to mash these two worldviews together.
We have this.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen.
I know.
How anyone could be that irresponsible.
That irresponsible.
And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods?
Hunter's
By that,
checks.
I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And
Hunter's
it's just
contracts.
Totally irresponsible.
All right, so now CNN's going to unpack
Totally
this.
irresponsible. And
I just want to be precise. That was released on CBS 60 Minutes on September 18th, 2022, about a month or so before, maybe 2 months before they found similar documents at the Biden private office.
Right, exactly. The president obviously was not, according to the statement that we received from the White House, was not at that point aware of the discovery of these items.
Okay, yes, not aware of the discovery of the items, but it was Biden's office in a Biden marked folder, presumably that says personal on it. So it's Biden's personal stuff. So he knew, right? He knew. Now, the White House didn't know that it was discovered, but he knew about it. So old Wolfie Blitzer is there trying to be very cutesy on this. Well, hold on a minute. When Biden was sitting there talking to 60 Minutes, he had no idea about these classified documents. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's true, right? He didn't know they were discovered, but they're his documents there, Wolfster. So he knew, presumably, that they were there. Wasn't that the same standard that you were applying to Trump? Like, hold on a minute now. Does Trump now get the excuse that the I didn't know thing works? Can he say that? No, I didn't know those documents were in there. No, I don't think so. And whoever this is pushes back on Wolf and says, well, yeah, kind of.
And according to the statement that we received from the White House, was not at that point aware of the discovery of these items. But what it will call into question is, just as the president made this mistake, or someone made this mistake, and transported these documents to the Penn Biden Center, just as easily someone could have done this in the case of former President Donald Trump. And the question to the Justice Department is, are you treating them differently? Obviously, the Trump investigation, we know, has taken a much different turn, right? You have months and months between where the archives was asking for these documents to be returned. We know that.
All right, so they're swapping over now to obstruction. But he's like, oh, man. And you can even see the little smirk on his face. He's like, oh, man, this is a big S sandwich. And we are having to eat this big time. This sucks. Oh, no. But now we have a clip of Joe Biden, right? He admits that he didn't have any access to these materials. After you're exiting the office as vice president, you lose access to your security briefs. This is Joe Biden admitting, showing that he didn't have access to the documents that they later found in his possession in his office.
In 2018, Joe Biden addressed his access to classified information in an interview with me. This was in the context of Russia's interference in U.S. elections, and it was in that office.
Look at this location. That's the same center. That's where the classified documents are. They're literally having an interview inside
the Penn Biden Center.
I don't have access to classified information anymore. I don't get briefed every morning by the agency.
Okay, but apparently he had those classified documents in the closet, in this room somewhere. Turn around, Joe. It's right behind you in the closet.
I did for 8 years.
He had it for 8 years, but he doesn't have access to it now.
Biden Center.
I don't have access to classified information anymore. I don't get briefed every morning by the agency, as I did for 8 years.
So you don't have access to it, but you do in your closet. It's in a manila envelope called personal. It's right back there. They just found it. All right, well, that's criminal and illegal and terrorist activity. So that's the president. And CNN is really having a hard time with this. So I found this fun clip of a former federal prosecutor who then converted over to a defense attorney, which is fine. We take them. I mean, they're not pure blood defense lawyers. That's fine, but we'll still take them. I mean, it's better than them continuing to be prosecutors. It's not ideal. We'd rather people just go right into defense and just be a pure blood defense attorney like we are at our firm. But, you know, not everybody's perfect. Some people learn later, learn later that they got to change teams. Anyways, former federal prosecutor turned defense lawyer is invited on to CNN and asked about this document dilemma where Joe Biden was found with classified documents in violation of the law in his personal office. What does this mean?
Republican lawmakers seizing on revelations that several documents, classified documents from President Biden's time as vice president, were discovered in his former private office. Now, does this compare at all to Donald Trump's hoarding of secret records at Mar-a-Lago?
What?
And what is the fallout here?
Okay, so let's just pause. We're going to break this one down. We've got some fun with this one. So she says documents were found at Biden's residence. Passive language, they were found. How does this compare with the hoarding of national security secrets by Trump? One more time.
Republican lawmakers seizing on revelations that several documents, classified documents from President Biden's time as vice president, were discovered in his former private office. Now, does this compare at all to Donald Trump's hoarding of secret records at Mar-a-Lago?
Found, hoard.
And what is the fallout here? Let's bring in criminal defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Katie Cherkasky. Good morning, Katie. Compare and contrast for me, I guess, this investigation and what happened with the former president at Mar-a-Lago, where when you put them side by side, 160 plus 60 top secret documents found at Mar-a-Lago.
Here you go.
These are less than 12 total.
All right, so here you go. Here's one of their dumb graphics, like they posted on their blog post. Classified documents found, Biden, under 12. Wow, that's great. Doesn't matter, right? Your people were arguing it doesn't matter. Possession of one. Simple possession is enough. Some top secret versus 60 top secret. Okay. Same point. The only distinguishing factor is cooperating versus under investigation. So you can see, man, they are having a really hard time. They're sitting around in their, pre-show rooms and they're saying, how can we just figure this one out? Trump's illegal, Biden's lawful. And they're coming up with these compare and contrast charts. I think it's actually a good idea. The only one that actually matters is this cooperation one. Now, the distinguishing factor on this, they're missing like another row. An additional row should say president and the other one should say not president, right? So Biden should say not president when he did all this stuff, and Trump should say president. And that would also be a pretty good distinguishing factor, right? And you could keep going down that road if you'd like to. You could also, declassified, okay, was actually engaging with the National Archives. Okay, the National Archives knew about Trump's documents and they made a request for them. Did the National Archives know about Biden's documents and make a request for them? I don't know. So we could add a whole bunch of additional rows. President versus not, know about the documents versus didn't know about the documents, stole the documents versus didn't steal the documents. We'll have to see.
Some top secret documents found in this office from the former vice president.
Well, obviously, I think the truth sometimes is really stranger than fiction here. This has been a story that we've been talking about with Donald Trump, and now we have
melting down.
Something that seems very similar with President Biden. And there are some differences, but there's a lot of key facts that are very similar. There are classified documents that were held after the point of being in office, it appears.
Illegal.
And we have to remember that the vice president, unlike the president, does not have the same authority to declassify documents, and they are subject to those laws regarding the handling of those. Now, in this
so why didn't you put that on your little chart there, CNN? You left that one off.
Case with President Biden, it doesn't seem that there's any sort of obstruction efforts, that the documents were readily turned over. And certainly there hasn't been any claims that he owns them or has any sort of right over them. So there seems to be cooperation there.
President
so in terms
versus
of the
not
obstruction,
president.
which I think for President Trump's purposes is the much more significant legal issue.
That
does not seem to be an issue in this case. But still, the handling of the documents is at issue.
No surprise that supporters of the...
I have a lot of questions about that point, okay? My question is, did Joe Biden sign over a similar letter? I mean, Trump had to confirm, right, that like at the end of moving, it's like, hey, move out day, Joe Biden, it's move out day, right? Has anybody investigated that? Like, did Joe Biden obstruct also? Did Joe Biden say, I've returned all my library books? Okay, the National Archives wanted that from Trump. Did they also send a similar form, a similar request? Did Joe Biden's lawyers, did his attorneys say, you've got everything that we've got? Promise, right? Just like Trump's attorneys were asked to do. Just like Christina Bobb was asked to do. So did Joe Biden sign anything like that? Does that exist anywhere? Presuming it does, right? That's sort of the exit plan. They would have done the same thing. Now, Joe Biden, we still don't know how he got the documents or whether he's entitled to those documents in the first place. So the simple possession of those, right? If they ask him, Joe, did you return the documents? Or, you know, he implied that those documents had been returned and they were not returned. That would be the exact same type of obstruction they're alleging Trump committed. Literally the exact same. I gave you all the documents back. I confirmed it in writing, and they're not there. They're not back. They're in Biden's office. So this obstruction thing, like, yeah, but we don't know anything about Biden's case. Why does he have those documents? You know, did he have permission to have them? So if he ever promised that he gave them back, he didn't. That's obstruction too. So it equates, right? It's the same thing. Both were in possession of documents. Both were top secret / classified. Both probably signed documents that said that they had given them all back. The only distinguishing factor, as far as I can tell, is that Trump was president. Biden was not.
Former president jumped on this, and the former president himself on his social media site was saying, when is the FBI going to raid all the homes of Joe Biden?
Trump.
I guess the point here is that the Biden team is cooperating, and actually they were the ones to reveal this, right?
Well, that's very true. And I think we have to remember the basis for the search warrant was that there was a dispute about the refusal to turn over the documents, and that did not occur here. So I think in terms, again, of the obstruction, that is not present in this case. But the mishandling of classified documents.
You don't know that yet, right? Okay, so she doesn't know that yet. We haven't seen any evidence of that is the better way to well, maybe she said that, but we don't know that, right? That's still an open question. Is at any point did Joe Biden promise that he didn't have any more classified documents? He seemed to know that, right? He told that to the woman on CNN. He said, I don't have access to those documents. So he knew that. He must have presumed that they had all been turned over. Who confirmed that? That's obstruction.
That if that is an offense that's being looked at, that happens at the time the documents are removed, potentially, if they're done so under inappropriate
same thing they were screaming about on
circumstances.
CNN.
So that
when Trump
part
did
of it is more nuanced. And legally, I think that those analyses are much more similar.
Attorney General Merrick Garland has asked the U.S. Attorney in Chicago to investigate how play this out for me. So this is now in the hands of the U.S. Attorney in Chicago. What happens next?
Well, I think that Merrick Garland's in a difficult position.
Yeah, that's an
obviously,
understatement.
he wants to ensure that the law is enforced fairly and have the appearance and the optics of fairness. But there's going to be a lot of questions about the comparisons here. So I believe that he assigned this U.S. attorney outside of the local jurisdiction to have some appearance of fairness. They seem to be a Republican appointee. And there's
a Republican appointee that they always use as cover. That's why they weren't asked to resign. That's great. Trump appointed this person, but Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth said, he's our guy. Okay, Joe, do not fire this dude. He's great. Anytime that you need somebody who's going to go, like kind of be our inside dude, who's going to go investigate our political Trumper, we need some people like that. We need some people who we can just put on a list and use as talking points to say, well, Trump appointed them, so therefore they're not biased. It's a very convenient way to not appoint a special counsel. You just say, oh, it's a Trump appointee. It's the same thing they're doing with Hunter Biden and David Weiss and the Delaware investigation into Hunter's taxes and Hunter's gun crimes and all of those other things. They say David Weiss is a Trump lawyer, even though nobody thinks David Weiss is a Trumper, okay? People, the reason he's still around him is because he was investigating the VP Biden's son, Hunter. This person is still kept around for some reason. So they like to play this little game where they say it's a big Trump, sympathetic individual, and it's very unlikely to be the case.
Also the optics that go along with that. But ultimately, I think that there's going to need to be a special counsel appointed to look into whether this is a criminal offense or whether this is something that is prosecutable even.
Yeah, it's the president. It's the president. It's not a former president. So if a former president gets a special counsel, the current president's got to get one too, right?
Which sounds ridiculous. And I think we've all seen how awkward it can get when the FBI and DOJ start investigating a sitting president. But ultimately, that is the big question here, is what to do with these allegations.
One thing we've heard from people who have handled these kind of documents, and you have as well, that maybe there's a problem with overclassification. Talk to me about that.
Overclassification? That's a very convenient excuse. Did Trump ever get that benefit of the doubt? Remember, oftentimes we were joking here when Trump was going through this. We said these were overdue library books. These were letters and notes and things that were going to end up literally in the National Archives, which is like a big library anyways. And they were demanding those things back. They're classified, right? Because it's got like the penmanship of Kim Jong-un or whatever, but it's not the end of the nuclear codes or something to that effect. So we were talking about this. Are there some things in there that maybe were, classified top secret that aren't really classified top secret, or that maybe shouldn't be? And so it's not actually the end of America. And everybody said that's egregious. That would never happen. That's outrageous. How dare you? CNN is now using that same justification. Well, yeah, I mean, technically there were documents that were found in Biden's office that were technically top secret and classified, but they probably didn't even need to be classified, right?
You have as well. That maybe there's a problem with overclassification. Talk to me about that.
Well, I do think that when you hear the term classified documents, that can refer to any number of things, and certain things are more important than others.
Yeah, like the nuclear codes.
So
they said that Trump
in terms of government agencies, there is a significant amount of classification. There are things that happen on a regular basis with people being mishandling them in some ways, and those are handled sometimes administratively. Right. So it's not always criminal prosecutions that are involved with this, because there is a high volume of documents. Again, though, the president has that declassification authority. Ultimately, every other government employee, including the vice president, is subject to the very strict requirements of handling those documents. So it can be the subject of disciplinary action or even criminal prosecution in some cases.
All right, Katie Cherkasky, nice to see you this morning. Thank you for clearing it all up for us.
Oh, they did not like that interview. Boy, hopefully she gets asked back on there. She delivered a lot of truth and a lot of bad answers for them. Basically that, all that stuff that you said that could happen to Trump, well, basically can happen to Biden too. This is why it's stupid to go and prosecute your political enemies. Maybe you should have thought about that, because guess who's in charge now? Oh, the Republicans are. And guess who's got the ability to now, do a lot of the same stuff, use the same subpoena power that the Democrats were using, the Republicans. And they're going to have a big fat field day with this one. And you can fast forward. You can see how this goes. If the Republicans win, if there's a President Trump, if there's a President DeSantis, if something like this happens and there's a new, Republican whatever this is, J10 select committee, when we all learned about this day, maybe the Democrats will realize what a stupid road this was to travel. We'll have to see. Now, that is what is taking place from the media, and that was the background on the Biden documents. Of course, we will continue to cover. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching this, and we'll see you on the next one.